and is rooted in reality with a strong emphasis, we're told, on hand-to-hand combat as well as weapons. How does it all work? Teo Yu Chai, he's the head of the Kapap Academy in Singapore, and he joins us here in the Breakfast Club, and he's also the chief trainer. Yu Chai, thank you so much for making it in Christmas Eve.
Thank you for inviting us. All right. I'm here with Bin Chen. All right. She's my co-founder of Kapap in Singapore. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about what it is all about. The two founders of Kapap. How did you get into this?
Yeah. Essentially, to be honest, I started this because my brother was actually attacked in Malaysia, and he paid with his life. He died in 2007.
Sorry to hear that.
We're pretty sorry about that too. In memory of him, I started Kapap because I felt that there was a need for a realistic self-defense system. Now, even by that time, I was a martial artist for over 30 years. All right, I felt that traditional martial art don't work so well in the streets. All right, because of other factors like the use of modern street weapons. So Kapap was actually the result of a need to reach out to help others.
Okay, before we talk about what it involves and why you feel that traditional martial arts don't come up to scratch, let's speak with Yun Kwan.
Yes.
You're the co-founder. How did you get involved with all this? You're a rather small girl. I'm being silly. She's very diminutive.
All right. Well, I started back in 2009, and at the time, as a lady, I've always been very concerned of my safety, because at the back of my mind, I always felt that as a lady, I should learn something to keep myself safe. And I was searching around for various martial art systems, and I felt that the traditional martial art systems that I knew of at the point in time didn't so much meet my concerns of lady self-defense until I actually chanced upon Kapap in the papers.
Okay.
And I went down for my first session, and I met my teacher there. And within the first session, it blew my mind as to how effective Kapap was, even if it's a much smaller person like a lady against a much stronger opponent like a guy.
Why were you so concerned about your safety? Living in Singapore, we're told we're one of the safest cities in the world, but low crime doesn't mean no crime. Did you have an unpleasant experience?
Well, thankfully, no. But I've always, felt that low crime doesn't mean no crime. There's always this possibility that if an attacker were to attack you, it's not a question whether you're at the wrong place in the wrong time. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to take a chance. So I decided it's much better to be prepared than to take a approach where after the attack happens, what do you do then?
Sure. Yu Chai, you said you started, developing this form of martial arts after a very, very, very tragic incident in your family. Did you know anything about it, or were you always a martial arts proponent?
Yeah, I've always been a martial opponent. As I mentioned, I was already been doing martial for 30 years.
Sure.
All right. The problem was that as things evolved, most traditional martial art became more sports-like. Mm-hmm. All right, and they lost the itch for the street. All right, primarily to keep people safe. All right, then I kind of asked around for people who, about what is the best or what are the better systems for street defense, and I was introduced to Kapap. I didn't invent the system. It's actually based on Israeli commandos used in the 1940s. All right, what we did, however, was we went on to create our own version, which is called Modern Street Combatives, and that's based on Kapap. The reason we had to have a change of name was to make it more generic and more acceptable to different races and nationalities.
Sorry for being so uninformed, but the word Kapap, is it Hebrew?
Yes, it is. It's based in acronym in Hebrew. The full version is actually Krav Panim Al Panim. Mm-hmm. But like mentioned, we actually prefer it to be a more international generic system.
Sure.
Therefore, we adopted the name of Modern Street Combatives, of which Kapap is one of the systems that we teach in our school.
You said traditional modern arts have been now geared towards the sporting arena, so although you can get hurt, it's become rather sanitized, and you said it's lost its edge. If we were talking about an edgy martial arts, people would say all the combined martial arts that you have, the MMA fighters keep doing that. Is that similar?
No. The problem with MMA is basically still a sport. Nothing wrong with it.
Sure.
All right. But look carefully. There's no defense against knife or gun attacks.
Okay.
They don't teach you to use weapons, knives, sticks, guns. Neither do they teach you to fight off multiple attackers. And these are all very real situations. Like, to be honest, I was attacked in Australia in the countryside once by 6 Australians.
Wow.
Yes. And I have to fight my way out. I was 1,000 kilometers from the closest city. So I have no choice but to fight. And this is where something that as practical as Kapap comes very useful.
Were you already trained in Kapap or not? Or you didn't get it?
I wasn't trained in Kapap per se, but I was trained in Savat, French kickboxing.
Okay.
And it's not the sports version. My teacher at that point in time was teaching at the Australian SAS Commandos. So that was my first exposure to what I call unarmed combat. Combatives type, okay? And I realized that it's a lot simpler and a lot more straightforward.
I know this is anecdotal, but you've perked my interest right now. What would 6 people pick on you for in the outback of Australia?
The truth of the matter is that Australia then, in the 70s and 80s, Australia went through a very racist period. If you check it out, there's a lady called Pauline Hanson at that point in time, and she was against the Asianization of Australia, and this kind of vibes, caused people to do silly things. And I was in the countryside, and Aussie boys, especially when they drink, they go crazy.
Mm-hmm. So they just approached you and decided to pick on you.
That's right. And I had to defend myself. I had no choice. So
did you leave them on the floor?
All I needed to do was I broke the leader's leg. I snapped it in his leg.
Oh my!
And, the other 5 didn't want to have a go at me after that. Yeah.
Oh boy, 669-11938 the number. We're getting the edge of martial arts this morning with Kapap. We are speaking today with Teo Yu Chai and Chin Yun Kwan. They're both founders of the Kapap Academy in Singapore. We're getting, not hands-on experience right now. This is radio by all stretch of the imagination. But if you want to find out more about Kapap, why don't you give us a call on 669-11938. You said it was, employed against an armed person, whether a firearm or even a knife. Do you guys train for that person? I'll ask that of Yun Kwan.
Well, we do train in gun disarming and knife disarming as well. And what we do is that in our training, it's a very scenario-based approach.
Okay.
So we look at what are the common ways that the person might attack another person with a knife or, for the matter, a gun. And usually for the matter, it could be a hostage situation. It could be at a robbery at gunpoint, a knife point. And then from there, what do you do about it? So we try to cut out a lot of choreographed acts.
Okay.
Like, for example, if the guy does a single stab, which never really happens in a real knife attack. So that's how we actually craft our lessons too.
Do you train perhaps our uniformed personnel in this?
We train, for example, with the police and even the military. Some of my former students were ex-special forces, local special forces. We train at the U.S. Navy based in Sembawang camp. So we do train the personnel. Both of us are trained in weaponry. So
sure.
We use knife, and I'm a National Rifle Association NRA certified instructor in weaponry as well.
As a lady, I'm just so fascinated with the fact that you're trained in weaponry. Where did you get all this weapons training from?
Well, I've actually gone to quite a few different knife fighting camps or seminars to learn. Primarily, I learned it from my teacher here in Kapap. But I also do look into, for example, amok knife fighting training.
Right.
And that is a different realistic self-defense approach to knife. So it's a combination of various knife fighting systems, but with the very primary focus that my training has to be kept realistic.
Okay.
So if I'm doing things that look very choreographed, then I don't really subscribe to the kind of systems.
Not choreographed martial arts. We're going to come back and talk about perhaps self-defense for women, and our best person to speak with would be Yu Kwan. And because of the fact that sometimes when you see martial arts training or self-defense classes for the attacker is always in this Michelin Man suit, and we want to find out how real a scenario of that situation would be. We are speaking about Kapap, the Israeli, based on the Israeli self-defense system and rooted in reality, with a strong emphasis, we're told, on hand-to-hand combat as well as with weapons. We'll come back, talk with Teo Yu Chai and Chin Yung Kwan. They're the founders of the Kapap Academy in Singapore. We'll be back in 2 minutes after an update of the news and what's happening on the roads of Singapore.
The LTA traffic news on 938 Live.
6255-8400 is Traffic Watch's number. Let's see what's happening on the roads right now. We have an accident on Beach Road. This is towards Java Road after Republic Avenue. We're also getting reports of a stalled vehicle on the BKE towards Woodlands after the SLE exit. Stalled one also on Rivervale Drive towards Sengkang East Way. This is before the junction of Rivervale Crescent. The vehicle, we're told, is in the left lane by Cheong Ah Chuan. If you have more reports for us, give Traffic Watch a call, 6255-8400.
This traffic report is brought to you by King Coil, your partner in home furnishing, the largest manufacturer of luxurious mattresses, bed linens, bedding accessories, and sofas. Trusted American brand since 1898.
Your voice and ours on 938 Live.
Making the headlines this hour, Indonesia arrests a terror suspect believed to be planning attacks in the country this month, and more bodies are recovered from the China landslide as hopes dim of finding any more survivors. For more of our news stories, head to our Facebook page at official 938 Live.
938 Live. Be informed.
Kapap. I just love saying that word, Kapap. We're joined this morning by Teo Yu Chai. He's the Kapap Chief Instructor of Asia at the Kapap Academy. His co-founder is Chin Yung Kwan. They're joining us to tell us more about this it's the Israeli self-defense system rooted in reality. Yung Kwan, before we left, we were talking about self-defense for ladies. Do you feel that current self-defense courses which are available are not real enough, not realistic enough in a real-life situation?
Well, I can speak for, the other schools, who are so-called speaking self-defense. But in my opinion, if I were to define what a realistic self-defense system would be for ladies, I would definitely think that it has to be very focused on what are the common attacks that a lady might face.
Sure.
For example, do they teach getting out of a potential rape situation? Do they teach them to get out of chokeholds or grabs, etc.? Because when you think about lady self-defense, these are the kind of attacks that a lady would want to learn how to get out of. So a self-defense system has to address these concerns.
How young do you teach students? How young can what age range? I know we can do it if you're an adult, but what about if you're a kid, teenager?
Yes, definitely. So we have a kids program that we train kids as young as 5 years old, right up to 12 years old. That's our kids program. And we focus them on two different aspects. And that is one on anti-bullying and anti-kidnapping as well.
Anti-bullying, okay.
Yes, good. That's right. And then from 13 years old onwards, no cap to the age limit, we will teach them how to get out of various situations. And they will address from executives to ladies to even youth personal protection.
Okay, and you have your own premises, your own, for lack of a better word, I'm going to use the word dojo because that's the only thing I'm familiar with in martial arts.
Training facility.
Yes, you have your own facility.
Training center, yeah.
Yu Chai, when we were talking about developing this particular form of martial arts, did you have to go to perhaps Israel to learn it?
Yeah, I went actually to US many times, principally because the people who taught us, the ex-Israeli commandos had actually gone to US. They migrated,
sure.
And we went there, and I was really impressed by what I saw. All right, but one thing we found that we had to adapt to the civilian context because if you think about it, the military context is to kill, all right, or to
right.
really hurt people. You can't do that in a civilian context.
Right.
At best, you can do is create opportunity to escape. So that's why we had to adapt it, and then we rebrand it as modern street combative.
It sounds
civilian version.
Sure. It sounds despite it being a civilian version, it sounds to be a very lethal
yes,
sort of discipline.
Yes.
If you go to other martial arts, there's always say, don't hurt somebody, don't initiate a fight, it's for self-defense, etc., etc. Is there a code that you guys adhere to as well?
Yes, we respect the laws of societies, and we say that you only do enough to get out, and that's after you try to de-escalate. All right. So we teach people, for example, a technique called the fence, where they put their hands up to ensure that they don't get struck in the face, and then they do enough just to get away. All right, and they shouldn't escalate the fight. Yeah.
If I were to ask you for your enrollment in Kapap in Singapore, is there a majority of women or men? Perhaps I'll ask Yung Kwan.
Yes, so we are quite different from, I would say, the typical martial arts schools, because our percentage of women is actually 70%.
Sure.
70% women, 30% ladies. So predominantly our student base is actually more towards ladies.
And the age range?
Age range is quite diverse, I would say. We have people who are in their teens, that's for the youth program, all the way to people who are in their 70s.
Sure. And how long would what would the progression be? If I was a judoka, I would have my yellow belt, my orange belt, blue belt, and then I'll become a black belt, or brown belt, and then a black belt. What kind of a progression would show that I've progressed?
So in our school, we don't go through a belt system, but we have different levels. So in our level 1 program, which we call it the Modern Street Combatives Executives Ladies Youth Level 1 Personal Protection Program, we have a 10 modules program that they go through. So in the 10 modules, they learn various techniques from stand-up situations to the ground defense situation, and also defense against weaponry. And then after the 10 modules, they go on to another 10 modules in what we call the Level 2 Personal Protection Program. And in that program, we'll teach them more techniques to fight off not just one attacker, but now 2 attackers, and possibly a person who is semi-trained in martial arts skills.
Sure. Now, Yuchai, I have to ask you as well. If, the progression, Singaporeans, we're always geared towards, hey, I've got my certificate after one. She's talking about modules, 10 classes, 10 modules. I've got this, so I've graduated to the next one.
Yeah.
How do I hone my skills, keep honing my skills, after I've got all these different modules under my belt, so to speak?
Right. Basically, what happens is that we try to kickstart a person's personal protection skills, all right, by going through that 10 plus times 2 session levels, all right. But after they graduate and they decide that they want to really get good, we encourage them to go into a Kapap Combatives class, or Modern Street Combative class. And this is where we teach them even more, I would say, aggressive techniques. All right? Because sometimes, unfortunately, you may need to attack, all right, to save somebody. All right? For example, someone is attacking your wife or child, then you have no choice but to go on an offense rather than be defensive. So that's where they learn a lot more. And that's an ongoing class that can go on for years. And some students have been with us for over, I would say, 7 years, as long as we started.
If a novice would want to, experience Kapap and, sign up for one of your classes, what kind of gear do I need? Do I need street clothes, or do I have to, again, I allude to the fact that there are other martial arts disciplines that you have to have a gi of some kind, some kind of clothes.
Yeah, so precisely because we are very reality-based, so we don't actually expect them to come in with uniforms like gis, etc.
Sure.
So they come as they are. So what we would suggest is probably just T-shirts and shorts, just for comfort level. But in some of the companies that we trained in, our students come in office suits, which is fine as well, because our techniques are not physically intensive, but very much focused on just getting out from safety.
Okay, now, there is a real possibility that someone, can get hurt in an accident situation. Now, for a man, do I need perhaps a protective cup, for lack of a better words, in case I get kneed in the wrong place?
Yeah, we generally don't require them to. If they wish to, they may. The reason because, let's face it.
Sure, you're not going to be
wearing a cup. Right. And we try to teach people to protect these vital areas. And here lies one key difference between sports versus a street. Because in sports context, you don't have to worry of getting being attacked in the eyes, your throat, or your groin. In the street, you will. So we teach them, learn to be sensitive to attacks in this area, and to learn to protect them from day one.
From day one. And it starts, for a lady, real life situations could mean the difference between being really, really harmed and getting away. I have to put this to you, Kwon. What are the first things that you teach ladies in their self-defense classes?
So right from the start is the way we actually, structure our training. So right from the start, we teach them about the concept of being aware of your surroundings, situational awareness,
Sure.
as we call it. And that comes from the ability to look out for signs of danger, avoid when possible, all right, de-escalate from it, and only as a last resort would you have to engage in a physical, engagement. And in the physical engagement, all right, the primary objective is to get out of danger. So also in the physical engagement, we will break it down into various contexts. So for
Sure.
example, from grabs, holds, chokes.
Say I'm a lady, in a confined space and encountering somebody. How would I get out of that situation? I know this is radio and I'm putting you on the spot, but for the sake of our listeners and the descriptive nature of radio, yeah.
Right. So you're talking about in a confined space.
Yeah, in a confined space.
All right. So if
I know one-on-one situation or one-on-two situation sometimes.
So in that situation, all right, if the lady has an improvised weapon, for example, if she has a pen,
Okay.
I'll recommend her to immediately take it out, provided it's accessible to her. For example, if the
Precisely.
pen is in the pocket, etc.,
Yes.
whip it out.
If I'm going to dig into my purse,
Yes, then forget it. But with an improvised weapon, it's great for a lady to use because it's what we call a force multiplier, force equalizer effect. So if she has a pen, she can take it out, assuming it's accessible. If it's not, if the guy has already done some form of tech, let's say, for example, grab her by her arms, for example, we'll teach ladies a particular technique that comes with small joint manipulation, which is the manipulation of finger joints to get out safety. And then once she releases the hold, she then proceeds on to, for example, palm striking the attacker in the face and create this opportunity to escape from the situation.
Okay, so the primary goal of Kapap is to get out of a potentially dangerous situation.
Correct.
What about the kids these days? You talked about bullying and as well as kidnap situations. How would you translate to a kid as well as making it fun so they don't lose interest?
This is where under our modern street combative program, which is a civilian version of Kapap,
Sure.
right, we teach the young kids to watch out for what they call predatory behaviors, and for that matter, even ladies. Now, we have the advantage because I'm actually a trained psychologist.
Indeed.
Yeah, and what I do is there are always some telltale signs, all right, which indicates that an attack is going to happen. And if you sense attack, you get up fast. Right? So that is preemptive. All right. Now, if that fails, then we get them to focus on techniques that can work for a small child against an adult or young lady against adult. Like she mentioned, small joints. Right? These are very effective against adults because no matter how small a child, if you grab a finger, you can snap a finger. And I've had my finger snapped before. It's very painful. It's very hard to continue attack. Other areas, like for example, striking the knee, striking the groin, this is accessible to children. Right? A guy may be very muscular, but you hit him in the groin, he's going to feel it. All right?
Indeed.
So we teach them the attack areas that are generally not allowed in sports.
And, I wish we really had more time. The moments that we have left, if people want more information about Kapap, how can they get a hold of it?
Yeah, right. So basically in partnership with Training Asia International, we would like to actually provide our realistic self-defense classes to everybody or anybody who's interested. And they can go onto our website at www.kapapsingapore.com. Kapap spelled as K-A-P-A-P, and of course Singapore.com.
Kapapsingapore.com if you want to find out more information about self-defense for ladies, for kids, and perhaps for all ages. We've been told right up to the age of 70. Teo Yu Chai and, of course, Chin Yung Kwan, they are the founders of the Kapap Academy in Singapore. Thank you for making it in this Christmas Eve.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you've been listening to The Breakfast Club on 938 Live. I'm Keith D'Souza.
938 Live gets you talking.
The LTA traffic news on 938 Live.
6255-8400.